What if the things quietly working against your fat loss were hiding in plain sight? Not in your workout, not in your diet, somewhere else entirely. I know that sounds vague right now, but give me a few minutes and I promise it will click in a way that changes how you think about this stuff forever. Because here is the thing that nobody really talks about. Fat loss is not always about what you add to your life. Sometimes it is about what you stop doing wrong without even knowing you are doing it wrong. And that is exactly what today is about. Two things, just two, backed by real peer-reviewed research that I am going to walk you through step by step. When I first came across these studies, I genuinely did not believe what I was reading. My first reaction was skepticism, complete skepticism. I sat there thinking, this cannot be real. But then I started thinking about people I personally know who have stayed lean their entire lives. Not people who are obsessed with the gym. Not people who track every single calorie they eat, just naturally lean people. The kind who seem to eat whatever they want and never really gain weight. You probably know someone like that too. And when I started running what this research says against what those people actually do in real life, something clicked. They were doing both of these things naturally, without thinking about it, without any plan at all. It was just habit. And that quiet habit was doing a lot of heavy lifting for them year after year, while most people around them struggled and couldn't figure out why. So today I want to hand you that same advantage. Not a complicated protocol, not a transformation challenge, just two small shifts rooted in actual science. No new workouts, no extreme calorie cutting, no supplements you need to buy. Just two adjustments that your body will immediately respond to. Let's get into it. The first thing we need to talk about is something called thermodynamic efficiency. I know that sounds technical, but stay with me because I am going to make this very simple. Every single time you eat something, your body has to do work. Real work. It has to produce enzymes. It has to activate your digestive system. It has to burn actual energy just to process the food you swallowed. That energy your body burns just from digesting food has a name. It is called the thermic effect of food. And here is where things start to get really interesting and a little bit alarming. Not all foods carry the same thermic effect. The amount of work your body actually has to do depends entirely on what kind of food you put in your mouth. And a study published in Food and Nutrition Research tested this directly. Researchers took real participants and put them in a fully controlled inpatient setting. That means they controlled exactly what people ate. Nothing was left to chance or guesswork or self-reporting. One group ate whole foods. The other group ate ultra-processed foods. Here is the critical part. Both groups consumed the exact same number of calories, same macronutrient ratios too, same protein, same carbs, same fat. The only variable that changed was whether the food was whole or ultra-processed. Everything else was identical. Then for 5 to 6 hours after eating, researchers tracked fat oxidation and total energy expenditure in both groups. The results stopped me cold when I read them. The whole food group burned approximately 137 calories just through the thermic effect of digesting their meal over those 5 hours. The ultra-processed food group burned about 73 calories doing the exact same thing. Nearly 50% less. Same calories going in. Wildly different story happening inside the body. And once you understand why that happens, you cannot look at processed food the same way again. Ultra-processed food has essentially already been pre-digested before it ever reaches your mouth. The entire manufacturing process, all the refining, the chemical treatments, the breaking down of fiber and structure, has already done the mechanical and enzymatic work that your body was supposed to do. So when you eat it, your digestive system basically goes easy day and barely does anything. It absorbs those calories almost effortlessly, no real work required, pure efficiency for your body. And your body loves efficiency. It always seeks the path of least resistance. So when you keep handing it shortcuts over and over again, it gets progressively lazier at burning calories through digestion. The gap per meal comes out to about 64 calories. Now I hear you. 64 calories sounds like absolutely nothing. That is barely a bite of food. How could that possibly matter? Let me show you exactly how it matters, because this is where most people completely miss the picture. The number itself is not the point. The compounding is the point. If you eat 2 processed food meals per day, and honestly, for a lot of people, that is a conservative number. That is 128 extra calories per day your body is storing instead of burning. Calories you did not eat extra. Calories that were not hidden anywhere in your food journal. They just did not get burned the way they should have because of the type of food you chose. Run that out for a week, and you are sitting at roughly 896 extra calories stored. Nearly 900 calories that would not have been there if you had just eaten a whole food version of the same meal. Stretch it to a month, and you are at approximately 3,584 calories stored. That is almost exactly 1 pound of body fat. 1 pound that appeared without you overeating even once. Not because you missed a workout, not because you went over your calories, but purely because of the food type you chose, even though the calories on the label looked perfectly fine. Over a full year, that math becomes genuinely startling. We are talking about 12 pounds of fat. 12 pounds gained while your calorie tracking said everything was exactly where it should be. This is the exact reason so many people are completely frustrated and confused by their lack of progress. They are meticulous. They are disciplined. They are doing everything they think is right. But the scale refuses to move or quietly creeps upward anyway. And they start blaming their metabolism, or their hormones, or their genetics, or just bad luck, when the real answer is sitting right there on their plate, looking completely innocent because the calorie count checks out perfectly. The label told the truth. The body told a completely different story. Now let us say you are not eating 2 processed meals per day. Let us say it is just 1. Maybe it is lunch because your schedule does not give you a better option most days. Even at 1 processed meal per day, you were looking at roughly 6 pounds of extra fat stored over the course of a year. 6 pounds that showed up without a single extra calorie consumed. This is what I call the silent tax of ultra-processed food. It does not announce itself. It does not show up on any label. It just quietly collects every single day in the background. And the flip side of that, the genuinely good news, is that switching to whole food versions of what you already eat immediately starts reversing that tax. You do not need a new diet plan. You do not need to eat less food. You do not need to count anything differently. You literally just need to eat real food and let your body do the work it was designed to do. Now let us talk about the second piece of this. And honestly, this one surprised me even more than the first one did, because this one involves something you are already doing every single day. Drinking water. A randomized controlled trial published in the journal Nutrients looked specifically at whether drinking water had any meaningful effect on fat oxidation and resting energy expenditure. And what they found genuinely floored me. Drinking water does increase energy expenditure, Your body actually has to burn calories to bring that water up to body temperature and process it through your system. Researchers have known this for a while. But what this particular study uncovered, and what almost nobody talks about, is how dramatically different this effect is depending on two very specific factors. And those two factors change everything. The first factor is your metabolic health. The study compared healthy, lean individuals to people who were metabolically inflexible. That means people who might be carrying extra weight, whose mitochondria are not working at full capacity. People with some degree of metabolic dysfunction. And what the researchers found was that metabolically inflexible people experienced a significantly greater increase in energy expenditure from drinking water than healthy people did. The effect showed up for everyone. But for people who are actively struggling with their weight and their metabolism, it was dramatically more pronounced. Which leads to something really important that I want you to hear clearly. If you are someone on a fat loss journey right now, your body is actually more primed to benefit from drinking water than a naturally lean person's body is. You have a real measurable physiological advantage here just sitting there unused. That is not spin. That is what the research found. And it means the simplest habit in the world has more power for you specifically than it does for people who do not need it as much. But here is the part that most people completely miss. And this second factor is the one that really separates people who get results from people who do not. Timing. The study found that drinking water in a low insulin, low glucose state, meaning in a fasted state before you have eaten anything, significantly amplified fat oxidation. Not by a small margin. Significantly. When participants drank water after consuming carbohydrates, that fat burning effect was almost entirely blunted. Largely gone. Insulin, it turns out, directly interferes with the fat oxidation response that hydration is supposed to trigger. So the timing of when you drink that water is not a small detail. It is actually the deciding factor in whether you get the fat burning benefit or whether you get basically nothing meaningful from it. Think about what this means in practical terms for your morning. When you wake up, your insulin is sitting at its absolute lowest point of the day. Your body has been in a fasted state for 7 or 8 hours overnight. Your glucose levels are down. Your body is primed. And in that specific state, drinking 1 or 2 large glasses of water can meaningfully increase fat oxidation in a way it simply cannot replicate after you have eaten. It is almost like your body is sitting at a starting line first thing in the morning, ready to burn. And most people wake up and immediately reach for coffee or food or both, completely bypassing that window without ever knowing it existed. Now, I want to be very clear. I am not telling you water is a magic fat burning potion. That is not what this is. But what I am telling you is that the research shows a real, measurable, physiologically grounded mechanism. Drinking water on an empty stomach in a fasted state accelerates fat oxidation in metabolically challenged individuals more than most people realize. That is not a claim. That is what the study found. And it costs you absolutely nothing to use it. Now, here is where I want you to zoom all the way out and look at what happens when you put both of these things together at the same time. Because individually, each of these is interesting. Together, they compound. On one side, you have the whole food advantage, potentially 64 to 128 extra calories burned every single day just from choosing less processed versions of the food you were already planning to eat anyway. On the other side, you have fasted state hydration, A measurable increase in resting energy expenditure and fat oxidation that costs you nothing but a glass of water and the habit of drinking it before your first meal. Stack both of these together and run the numbers conservatively. You are potentially looking at 100 to 150 extra calories burned per day, every day, without a single extra workout added to your schedule. Without shrinking your portions, without white-knuckling through some restrictive diet that makes you miserable and that you abandon after 3 weeks anyway. Just 2 small habit shifts doing quiet, consistent work. Over the course of a full year, that daily caloric difference translates into real, visible fat loss. The kind you can see. The kind that shows up in how your clothes fit. The kind other people start to notice. And what gets me most when I sit with all of this is just how brutally simple it actually is. We live in a world drowning in complicated fat loss strategies, elaborate protocols, expensive supplement stacks, extreme programs that require you to restructure your entire life just to follow them. And meanwhile, the 2 most impactful things you can do cost nothing and take almost no effort once they become habit. That tension is almost funny. Your body was never designed to be handed pre-broken down, pre-processed food that requires 0 effort to absorb. It was designed to work. It was built for the friction of real food digestion. And when you stop handing it shortcuts, when you stop making everything effortless for it, it starts doing exactly what it was built to do. It burns more. It works harder. It functions the way nature intended. So the next time you are standing somewhere trying to choose between a whole food option and a processed one, and the calories look identical on the label, remember that the label is not the full story. Your body writes a completely different story once that food gets inside it. And that story is either quietly working for you or quietly working against you every single day, whether you notice it or not. Start choosing whole foods not because the calories are lower, but because the work your body has to do to process them is dramatically higher. That work is fat burning, and you get it for free just by making a smarter choice. And tomorrow morning, before you do anything else, before coffee, before scrolling your phone, before breakfast, drink water. A big glass. On an empty stomach. Let your insulin stay low just a little bit longer. Let your body sit in that fasted fat burning state and give it the hydration it needs to amplify what it is already trying to do. You are not adding effort. You are just removing a barrier that was always in the way. 2 things. Whole foods. Morning water on an empty stomach. That is the entire strategy. No program to buy. No transformation challenge to sign up for. No complicated system to learn and maintain. The research is real. The mechanisms are proven. The math adds up in your favor when you actually run the numbers. And the cost of starting today is essentially 0. Your body has been waiting for you to stop making things so easy for it. Give it something to work against, and then get out of the way and let it do what it was always capable of doing. That is it. That is the whole thing. Simple does not mean ineffective. Sometimes simple is exactly what works. And this is one of those times.